Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson, and thank you so much for listening in. If you like what you hear, please remember to subscribe to the podcast. And if you're listening using Apple Podcasts on iTunes, please rate and leave some feedback. Any other questions or comments, just hit me up at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on the lessons that life throws at us, to learn and grow from them, and of course, to pay it forward to uplift others who are struggling. Listen, let's make no mistake. Major setbacks that affect your family and livelihood are no laughing matter, and it can be a big hit to your self-esteem and mental state. And let's be real about this. At these times of these major setbacks, it is quite human for the initial response to be sadness or anger. But it's those who push through that initial response. It's those who refuse to be defeated. And it's those who realize the circumstances don't define them. These are the ones who put on that armor and persevere. On the road to overcoming this devastation, they may not know what the solution is, but they know there is a solution. That's what sets these people apart. We have a special guest for you who, in a time of major adversity, has demonstrated resilience and courage. Get this, she had a very lucrative career in the energy industry, and just 2 weeks after returning from maternity leave, she's laid off. So how does she respond, you ask? By becoming an entrepreneur, opening a business that helps others improve their wellness. She's opened Thrive Yoga and Wellness and is changing the lives of so many people in a tremendous way. We're going to learn about how she's faced her setbacks and the source of her strength to help others in spite of adversity. Let's welcome Jennifer Dixon to the show. Hey, Jennifer, it's so great to have you here.
Oh, Aubrey, thank you so much for having me. It is my pleasure and honor to be here.
Oh, no, absolutely. We reciprocate for sure. So Jennifer, can you please tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, where you're from and so forth?
Sure. So I can honestly say I am originally from Florida. There's not too many folks that say that. Most of them retire down there, right? So
that's right.
My family moved us up from Florida to Tennessee when I was young, and I grew up here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and went to school here, met my husband here, and then spent about 8.5, 9 years up in the suburbs of Philly in the continuing my energy industry career before moving back after getting laid off. So I've been in Chattanooga basically my whole life.
Gotcha. So let's talk about the that defining moment that you didn't expect when you woke up, I'm sure, that morning, where you are returning from maternity leave, and actually it was 2 weeks after, from what I understand.
Yep.
That you walk into the office and you're given this news. Can you speak to the immediate human emotions that kind of went through you the moment you were told about being laid off?
So interestingly, I kind of felt like the writing was on the wall. I was a developer. I was an energy developer. So I was in the role I had, I was developing power plants. And before I left for maternity leave, I had XYZ projects. And the company at the time, the stock was in the tanks. And the guy that had actually hired me and recruited me had taken a new job right before I left for maternity leave, which, is never a good sign.
No.
And so when I got back to work, nobody gave me my projects back. These are like 5-year jobs. These aren't like a project that you finish in a week. Like you're married to these projects for several years. And for the first week, I thought, oh, well, that's nice. They're being so nice to me, helping me to get settled back into not being with my daughter, because it was my first baby and, like first time moms. And so, but then the second week I went home and I told my husband, it was like a Monday, and I was like, I'm in trouble. And he's like, why? And I said, they are not giving me any of my projects back. They're having meetings without me. And so the interesting thing is, and I forgot to tell you this, Wednesday morning, I'd gone to my old job. I'd switched jobs a couple years before I had my child, and I'd asked if they had any positions because I just had this feeling.
Right.
And I got home that day, and my husband came home, and he had been laid off. Completely different industry.
Oh,
He
wow.
was in a completely different industry. That was the last Wednesday of October in 2015. And I was like, don't worry about it. We're going to be okay. You know, God's got a reason for all this. I don't know what it is, but he does.
Right.
And then Friday came up, and at the end of the day, the secretary came to get me, and she wouldn't look at me. And I thought, that's interesting. And so they put me in the corner. There was a box of tissues. The new boss, who I'd never really clicked with, she was there. The HR person was on the phone, and they told me that they were laying me off. And you may not believe it, but I was so relieved because at least I knew what was going on. I don't know if
Right.
that makes sense. And the only thing I asked, they said, do you have any questions? I said, how long does my insurance last?
Right.
Because again, I'm a new mom, so I'm scared to death that everybody's going to get sick. And
Sure.
what's my severance package? I was like, how long is insurance and what's my package? And my boss, her mouth just kind of opened up. She was shocked. I didn't cry. I wasn't upset.
Right.
I can't, some people may not believe in this, but I believe it was nothing but grace that kept me calm. I didn't cry. I didn't do anything. And I found out my severance package, and she said, you can keep working for the next 2 weeks. And I kind of snortled at that point. You know, I was like, why the heck would I keep working, you know?
Right. Right.
And so I kind of pieced out. Like I left the meeting very abruptly, and I said, you know, like, peace out, really. See you later. And
Yeah.
I never saw that lady again. I dropped my stuff off the Sunday night, cleared out my desk, and kind of never thought anything of it. It was up in the suburbs of Philly, and we moved home Chattanooga,
Right.
about 2.5 weeks later, the week or so before Thanksgiving of that year. So it to me, that was divine providence. And so it was a really low point, but on the flip side, it was also covered in peace, which is so weird, surreal to think about. But I had no idea what was going to happen. We went from making well over six figures to my unemployment, and it was scary. And
Sure.
but it was also, and this is just, I mean, I remember talking to my husband about, I have no idea what's in store for us, but there's got to be a reason why this happened. It's just way too coincidental. And
Right.
so that's how I ended up back home in Chattanooga.
You know, that's amazing. I mean, that really is amazing because, and thank you. That kind of segued into my next question, which I believe you answered about your, about how you maintain some sense of calm, right? And quite frankly, in my mind, it seemed like you had a cerebral reaction. It was more with the head, and less of the heart, or the over emotional reactions, which would be quite permissible and understandable, legitimate at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but asking the legitimate questions, the questions regarding security for your family and everything. So, about the, medical and the severance package and that sort of thing, especially being a new mom. And following, or 2 weeks later, following where you basically said deuces to them, you and your husband followed your hearts, right?
Yes.
You followed your hearts and moved back to Chattanooga. So it's I just find it really intriguing how it was a head reaction, okay, to make sure things that matter are covered in your response to the news they had for you. But you followed your heart following that, so that you could figure out where that leads from there, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's often, that can, my husband's not here, so I have a saint of a husband, and that can sometimes be one of our contentious things, because I am guilty of being very cerebral at the most inappropriate time. He's like, aren't you supposed to be crying? And then the logic and reasoning is taking over. And of course I got emotional. Of course it was devastating to me to move home. And we ended up moving into my father-in-law's basement apartment, and talk about devastating, going from like, we were driving luxury cars. We had so much into a basement apartment with our newborn. Like, that was devastating. But on the flip side, like, and that's just what I kept telling myself and telling my husband, I was like, our needs are met. We are set for a while. We don't have to do anything. And there was an incredible amount of liberty in the fact that, you know what, it's okay. Like, of course I can't go shopping every Sunday while he's watching football like I used to, but on the flip side, like, it was okay because all of our needs were met. Like, we still had a roof, we still had a car, we still had hot water and food, you know, like at no point did we ever starve, even though we drastically reduced everything about our standard of living. And so it's a really unusual sense of peace, but it was there.
That's awesome. And I can understand that. I mean, because to me, it feels like, you know, you had a very, very realistic outlook on, you know, just the perspective of it all. Like, yeah, sure, we had like luxury cars and we had all of these conveniences that we enjoyed before, but, you know, in the grand scheme of things, and we don't have even half of that, but in the grand scheme of things, we're good. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people have that realization afterwards when, you know, when things turn around and people start to get on their feet. But you had that at the time you were going through it, you know, and to me, that's just tremendous. It really is. And it speaks to the humility that you have as well of recognizing what you're going through and also understanding that, again, when it comes to basic needs, that's really all that matters.
Wow. Thank you, Aubrey. I'd never thought about it as humility. I really appreciate that. I'm taking it as a huge compliment. Wow. I wish I could say that there was some magic I would love to. Honestly, it was the foundation that I had was that foundation of my own beliefs. And then I had a really, like, that kind of segues into what I'm doing now. I have practiced yoga almost every single day for the last 10 years. And there's, like you talk about in your podcast, you do this mindfulness breathing. And that was what kept me, I think kept me grounded and breathing, because if you can breathe when you're in an intense back bend, or, you know, if you can breathe when you're in these positions where it's like, holy moly, then you can sit there and breathe when the carpet's jerked out from under you, sort of thing. And so, it was a huge combination of the faith that I already had with this daily practice, moving and breathing in very uncomfortable positions.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. But it's something that you remain steadfast with, right?
Oh, correct.
Yeah, you carried it out through and through, whether during thick times or thin times. It's something that it was a part of you, a part of what you practice, and that had to have gotten you through, along with some other contributing factors as well. So, and that's a great segue, and I appreciate you saying that, Jennifer. How long did it take for you to make the decision from the time you were laid off that that you had a calling, or that you felt like you wanted to explore the entrepreneurial world, so to speak?
Well, gosh, when I was a kid, I've always done what I could to make money. My mom was a teacher and my dad was in construction, so we didn't have a lot. So I made it. If I wanted to go on a trip in 8th grade and my parents didn't have the money for it, so I sold. Oh my gosh, my mother would drop me off. This is showing me my age. She would drop me off in front of a local Kmart, and I sat there for the entire school year, just about every weekend, selling candy bars so that I could afford to go to my trip to DC and New York. So I guess that's just kind of, I did. I remember it was an $860 trip. And then I still had, it was more money than I'd ever had at the time, $400 to go spending in New York City. It was ridiculous. And I sold candy bars that way. That's how I did it. So I guess I've always kind of been that way. But as an adult, and I had other businesses when I was employed, but as an adult, I always had one foot where I got that steady paycheck. And I was paid handsomely. And then I had my side hustle. And the safety of having the paycheck allowed me to take the risks that I was able to take. And that paycheck enabled me to actually to take on this business. But it's been with me since, I'd say it's in my blood, Aubrey.
It's in your blood, huh? No, I hear you loud and clear. No. So, ever since you were younger, right? And, yeah, so that's awesome. I love it. Sweet. So, when it comes to yoga, like you said, you've practiced it for some time, and it's part of who you are. It's part of what you do.
100%.
Sweet. If you can share with the listeners about Thrive Yoga and Wellness.
Sure. So I took over a studio back in 2016. It took me, to answer the first part of your question, it took me all of unemployment, which is 6 months. It was back in those days in 2015, 16. I enjoyed every single bit of my unemployment, let me tell you. And my severance package, I was a new mom, I didn't want to go back to work. I was working 60, 80 hours. I was traveling. I didn't want to go back to that. I loved, and I would have never believed it, I loved being with my daughter.
Oh, of course.
And during that time I was unemployed, I was applying, I was interviewing. I went and interviewed for some jobs at different places across the country.
Right.
And none of them, I shouldn't say it. They were great jobs, but they weren't my passion. And they would require me to be gone from my daughter. And I didn't love that idea.
Right.
And in fact, the day that I signed the business papers to take over the studio, I actually interviewed with another company here in Chattanooga. The very day I purchased the business, I was interviewing for another position that would give me that stability, that would give me that paycheck, that would give me the insurance and the retirement and all the things that I had been indoctrinated to believe that I needed.
Right.
And during that interview, if there's like a defining moment, it was in the interview, and one of my best friends was on the interview panel. I mean, if ever there was a shoe-in for a position, it would be right then.
Right.
And during that interview, they asked me a question, and I wish I had the ability to remember the question, but it hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, I will be dying here if I do this. And and I know that sounds so dramatic, but I had enjoyed 6 months of being with my daughter.
Right.
I was good at what I did. I knew the energy industry. I'd been in the energy industry for 15, 16 years.
Right.
I knew what it was. I was good at it, but it wasn't what I loved to do.
Right.
And so they asked me a question, and I talked them out of hiring me. I can't believe I'm telling you this, but I was like, I honestly said, I was like, yes, I can do this job.
Right.
I will do well at this job, but you're not getting my best. You're not getting my best. This is not my gifts. And I will do better than anybody else, but you're not tapping into my gifts. These aren't my gifts. And I talked them out of hiring me. And on my way out, I stopped in the restroom, took off my pantyhose,
right,
threw them in the trash can, and I have not put on a pair of pantyhose.
That is huge.
I haven't worn a suit, and I haven't worn pantyhose or anything like that. And I think I've worn heels twice since then. It's coming from a corporate world, like that was huge. And so that to me was when it sold me that this was my time to go all in. When I had both on the table, like if ever there was a divine, like Jennifer, make your choice, I had them on the same day, literally just a few hours away from each other. And I didn't want it. I looked it in the face and I said, no, I don't want it. And I haven't looked back.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And it's like they helped you answer that question. They help you make that decision by asking you that question, right?
Totally. That was totally correct.
Yeah.
I would probably not have made that decision. I probably would have been like, what if had it
Right.
not been for that interview on that day. And I woke up that morning every bit prepared to take over the business
Right.
and start a new job. Like I was prepared to do them both because I'd done them both before.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to. I didn't want to.
No, yeah, yeah. And when you went to the restroom to take off the pantyhose, I mean, to me, that's metaphoric as well, right?
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I think it's metaphoric. I mean, especially, making that transition from the corporate environment to, to wellness and doing something that you love and have a passion for that, that speaks to your heart, right? That will give you that 100% dedication that you deserve of yourself to give, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Man, that's awesome. Wow, Jennifer, you've certainly had a long journey. And you know what? I had a question regarding Thrive Yoga as well.
Sure.
Can you give me some examples of like the growth or the help that your clients and those who attend Thrive Yoga and Wellness have shared with you?
Sure. So
Yeah.
you're talking from a business perspective or from a personal perspective?
Well, from a personal perspective about, how your platform has helped them when it comes to wellness, sleeping better, health improvements, anything like that?
Oh yeah. So I get feedback like that almost every day.
Nice.
I I I know I sound a little bit like a yoga evangelist, but it's almost miraculous how much your body wants to breathe and how much your body wants to move. And when you
Right.
combine the two of those mindfully,
Hmm.
it is nothing short of miraculous what happens inside your body. So it's not surprising. I have a client who started coming. Um, a- she's got issues with her neck and migraines, and she is honestly one of the biggest Thrive Yoga and Wellness evangelists. She's even bigger than I am at talking about how much yoga has helped her. And
Really?
then I've got clients that signed up for. I immediately started a teacher training program because the studio only had a handful of teachers, and I wanted teachers that taught in a way that I knew and I trusted. I don't know if that makes 100% of sense. So I have clients that were clients that came to my teacher training. I taught them, and they're now teachers and huge Thrive advocates. When I first started, I was the basically the only advocate, and now I feel like I have this army of all of these super wonderful and encouraging, mostly women, because it is yoga. I have a
Sure.
tribe that's around me, and where one person's trumpet can make a little bit of noise, when you get the tribe that is Thrive Yoga and Wellness, man, we make some noise. We have ladies that do lose weight, that get stronger than they thought they could, that don't have the migraines, or they now have the tools that when the migraine comes, that they can use the breathing and the stretching. And then the chronic pain things, they can start to relieve some of that, because if you start to move your body in the way that it was intended to, then it's starting to strengthen. And then the body, I kind of joke and say the body is the best closed circuit, and I'm probably butchering this analogy, on the planet, because it wants to heal. Your body wants to feel good. It wants to be in alignment. And the way that our lives are now, we're so sedentary. I mean, what do we do when we come home? Most of us come and sit down and watch the TV.
That's
and
true.
We weren't designed for that. We were designed to move. And so with just an hour several times a week, even an hour once a week, you're going to see a difference. And when people ask me that, how much do I need to practice? I'm like, you're probably asking the wrong person, because I practice almost every single day.
Right.
But
Right.
what I can tell you is the more you practice, the better you'll feel. And so it just becomes this beautiful circle of improvement and growth over time. And it's nothing short of beautiful and miraculous.
Awesome.
I
100%.
love it. I love what I'm doing.
That is great. And you know what? It shows. It really shows in how I hear through your heart, through your inflection of your voice, your tone. I can truly receive what you're saying as genuine and authentic. So, man, I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So, Jennifer, of all the triumphs and tragedies of your journey and what you have endured and achieved thus far, what is the one thing that you can share with us that you've learned about yourself?
I am stronger than I thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm more capable than I thought I ever could be. I never knew that I could do this and be able to sustain a life like this. And after losing the job and losing that standard of living and moving into an apartment and all of that sort of thing, it's the human spirit to make it be a collective thing. It is you stronger than you think, and you're smarter than you think, and you can do it. No matter how dark it is, you can do it. And that's what I learned about myself.
Right on. Well said. Well said for sure. How can our listeners learn more about Thrive Yoga and Wellness and all the different things that you have to offer?
Sure. So we are a brick and mortar studio in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a yoga studio, and we have a website, thriveyogaandwellness.com. But we also have an online platform, an online membership, which is focused more towards the type of yoga that I like to practice, which is a very physical and a strength building practice. I came to yoga from a back injury, and so I have to maintain a very strong core. And so the Thrive Online platform is a strength-based, yoga-inspired exercise and wellness group. And that is at thriveyogaandwellness.com/thrive-online.
Awesome. Fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing that with the listeners, Jennifer. We will make sure that we include this contact information and the website information for Thrive Yoga and Wellness on the episode show notes.
Awesome.
Yep,
and don't forget, for your listeners, I will give it a free month in the Thrive Online. If anybody's interested, you'll go to thriveyogaandwellness.com/rediscovery, and there'll be a link to the membership for 1 month free.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And I implore the listeners, please, please take Jennifer up on her offer, because you can really, really find a defining, transforming moment in your life by going to the Thrive Yoga and online wellness page by using the URL that she's provided. And once again, we'll make sure that that URL is also included in the show notes on every platform that we listen to for our podcast, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcast or Google or Stitcher. All of our listeners will be able to access that URL. So awesome. Well, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aubrey. It was so much fun.
Oh yeah. I had a blast, I tell you. And so now we're going to enter the segment we like to call 3 for the Road. And these are 3 quick rapid fire questions. I try to challenge my guests in answering in 5 words or less. And they're kind of fun yet thought-provoking questions. So you think you might be up for it?
I'm game.
Awesome. Okay, here we go. This is going to be fun. I thought of some good ones for you too.
Uh-oh.
All right. Question number 1. If you were appointed queen of the world, you ruled over all the land, but there was only one single law that you can proclaim and enforce, what would it be?
Ooh, that's deep. Follow your peace.
Follow your peace. I like that. That's deep as well. All right, sweet. Okay. Number 2, complete the following sentence. We all can find healing from
Yoga. That
Well
was
said.
easy.
Well put. That was easy. Yoga in one word. Boom. All right. Man, you're pretty good at this. All right. So this brings up number 3. Okay. It's often been said that we're all made up of our good and bad experiences. So generally speaking, on a scale of 100%, what ratio do you believe we are made up from and why? Is it 50-50? Is it 70-30?
Huh. Give me a second.
Okay.
I think when we're born, we
Yeah.
are 100% good.
100% good. Okay.
I think as we age, the scales can tip based on any number of factors, whether it's external. And then once we become of age, then we have the power to change it back towards 100%.
Gotcha.
Is that answering your question?
Yes, that definitely answers my question. No, thank you. Thank you. And those that go over 5 words, I don't care because the response is deep. The response is fulfilling. Right. And so I appreciate how you kind of qualified the statement with how we start out and how we, negotiate throughout life and come back full circle. So thank you. All right.
And number 2 only had 1 word, so that gave me 4 extra ones.
Well, yeah, it did, right? So you netted out. You netted out just perfect. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Hey, Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. It was fun. I was so glad to be here.
Great. And we really appreciate having you on the show as well. And like I mentioned earlier, for all the listeners, we'll be sure to have Jennifer's information on Thrive Yoga and Wellness on the show notes, as well as the URLs to where you can take advantage of the special offer that she is extending to Road to Rediscovery listeners. Again, you can find the show notes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen to the show, as well as our website, roadtorediscovery.com. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone. And please remember to subscribe to the podcast, leave feedback, and share with your friends and family. The Road to Rediscovery is part of a movement, part of a revolution. And guess what? You are now a part of it. So together, we are roadies, and it sure feels good having you on the journey. Thanks again, and we'll chat again soon. The Road to Rediscovery is an AJ Shark production.